All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Conversations on Retail. My name is Matt Pfeiffer. It is a beautiful day in Northwest Arkansas. It's been cold for a while, but we're so excited to see the sun shining. We're even more excited to welcome our friend Jorge Risquez, co-founder and CEO of BOPS, back to continue his series focused on CPFR 2.0. And today, Jorge welcomes it seems like Tim and I have been friends for 15 years, but we're friends that have never met, and
Yeah.
friends that are looking forward to getting to know one another. But Tim, from president of Trend Results, a great company that's been in the supplier education space for a long time. He's here to talk with Jorge about embracing the shift from Retail Link to Walmart Luminate. So we're excited to dig into that conversation soon. Just a couple of things in the way of housekeeping. So first of all, thank you so much to Jorge and his team for not only creating but sponsoring this group, making it possible for this group to exist in these conversations. And we would encourage you to, the folks that are joining live, and there's a good number we're expecting, this is intended to be a conversation and not a presentation. So as you have questions or if you've got comments you want to offer, or even if there's something that you don't completely agree with, we would love for you to be a part of the conversation. You can do that by clicking on the Q&A button in Zoom and submitting your questions and comments in writing. So with that said, Jorge, I'm going to turn it over to you. Looking forward to this great conversation.
Thank you, Matt. And I appreciate the introduction. Tim, I'm actually very excited to speak with you again. Tim, I'll say you've been an ambassador of the Walmart Supplier Community. You've been working with the community for the past more than 20 years.
Yeah,
And I'm very, very intrigued to kind of understand your thoughts of what have changed in terms of the dynamics. And just give us a little bit of an intro of who is Tim, what have you been doing over the past 20 years, and the dynamics a little bit about around supplier collaboration, specifically within the Walmart community.
Yeah. So, well, thank you. I know we've had some calls recently, the last couple of months. Great learning about BOPS. My company, Trend Results, as Matt introduced, and we've been working in the supplier community on the supplier service side for, somehow 20 years, primarily in the supplier education and consulting business. So we handle a lot of analytics and overflow work that suppliers who they know they need someone working on it, but there are a lot of companies are skeleton crews. They don't have a lot of time. They don't have the knowledge of what Walmart needs to see out of the data. So we kind of fill that void. And we've also been doing supplier education, training webinars, classroom workshops in person for, since about probably 2014 with the classes. So, things have been pretty status quo with Walmart for a while with decision support, as far as I remember. And so this latest move this past year is really shaking things up with the transition to Luminate.
Just to level set, for those of you guys that don't know, DSS, or Decision Support, has been an application where Walmart shares supply chain sales or POS data and supply chain data for the suppliers for free. And it started in 1992, actually. Yep. 1 year after I was born. And it's been pretty much the de facto system where Walmart suppliers pull data so that they can make decisions around replenishment, sales, forecast. And obviously, team, we're going to talk about that. But there was a big announcement that happened last year that by March of this year, there's going to be a transition from DSS, or Decision Support, into Luminate. So yep. What are your thoughts about that topic, Tim? And it would be great to get your perspectives here.
So change can be painful sometimes. If you've been working with Walmart for a while, decision support was fantastic. It was a little clunky, but to be honest, something that was created in 1992 to still be functioning in 2023 exactly as it was, however many years ago that was. It is a pretty good testament to how robust their system was built. I do understand the need to update technologies and offer a different solution, kind of and granular view of data outside of decision support. But change is never easy. So I have seen been digging around in the Luminate Basic program, which is free for suppliers who don't realize that. There is a free version of Luminate. There's also a charter version that gets you a lot more insights. You can still manage your business and get probably 95% of the the insights you could get from decision support, you can still get from Luminate Basic. So don't panic. There's just more. It's just another learning curve. Just like when you were learning decision support, you're going to have to learn Luminate Basic again.
And before we actually, Tim, and before we actually deep dive into Luminate, and I think I appreciate you bringing in, right, you have what they call the charter paid version, which is pretty much a combination of 3 modules where you have channel performance, pretty much very similar to DSS, supply chain data, POS data. You have customer perception, which is in line with the loyalty Walmart members that receive data or provide insights of why they buy and their behavior of certain Walmart products. And then obviously the other one is around the shopping transactions. They have, I think Walmart has around 150 million transactions a week where they could use those shopping transactions to extract patterns and provide those to the supplier. But obviously those 3 modules are today paid. But the one piece that is free is channel performance. It's part of the module, but mostly the basic data points of forecast. They're also providing supply plan. They're also providing POS data and inventory data. So very similar. The one thing that is actually not being provided in this free version, which I think is shaking a little bit of the suppliers, but there's a workaround, which we're going to share. It's purchase orders, which is now being all managed through Nova. But even before we get into Luminate, I do want to really pick your experience over the past 20 years. Why the data that suppliers were receiving, especially those objects that I was mentioning before, was so useful for the suppliers? Why they were important and why they are important now?
Yeah, you know, a lot of times when suppliers get new business with Walmart, it might be working with other retailers already, and the tendency is to have that information provided to you by your buying department or by your replenishing department. Walmart takes a different tack. They have access to the data, and they tell their suppliers, you tell us what the liabilities are, what the opportunities are, and so to me, I like that idea. I like the notion that Walmart is saying, you know your account better than we do. Here's access to the data. You tell us how we're doing. Tell us where your in-stock issues are, your liabilities. Drill down and provide us a root cause analysis. Here's your order forecast document that'll help your procurement team align with our sales forecast and order forecast to help drive on-shelf availability. You know, there are a lot of there are 1,000 ways you can use data. First place is learning how to use the data, learning what it all means. So it can be a little bit of an onboarding curve, especially for new suppliers who didn't realize they were going to have to do this when they were trying to get the new account.
And Tim, can you elaborate in a few examples? I think you've been working with many suppliers. A few examples for a particular category or product where the use of data really made an impact into the account.
Oh yeah, gosh, over the years, many. I would say one that probably sticks out the most was a way that we were able to, believe it or not, reduce a supplier's store count for a certain item, but increase sales and increase their asset efficiency. It was a situation where it was a new category of product, so Walmart didn't really know how the consumer was going to respond to it. They sent it out corporate wide, so this small supplier is all of a sudden in 4,200 plus stores. And the product didn't respond as well in all of those stores. We started looking at kind of supply chain performance metrics and found that these stores are somehow out of stock and overstock at the same time. Or this item is, 80% in stock, but somehow 30 weeks of, which doesn't make sense at item level. So we were able to drill down and find out that it was a certain subset of stores that were overwhelmingly selling most of their product. And so you had a very large percentage of the inventory that was at these bottom performing stores that were selling less than 10%. So we were able to look into some demographic information to see commonalities that these top stores had and go to the buyer and say, look, we think we should lose 2,500 stores, which immediately gets a buyer's attention because no supplier ever suggests that. But instead of just losing those 25, we think we could pick up these additional 300 stores. So we were able to really optimize their store count by decreasing it. And it took a lot of conversations with the supplier them of this conversation because nobody believed me that we could reduce store count and increase sales, but that's exactly what happened. That's just one of many examples of what can be gleaned from A, getting access to the data, but B, really knowing what you're looking at. And that's kind of the hardest learning curve is really putting on your analytics hat.
That's spot on. And I appreciate you sharing that example. I think to me, the fact that usually there's the tendency that we need to focus on out of stocks. Usually there's also the tendencies that we need to have very high in stocks. But when you look at management inventory, right, the other side of the equation, having overstocks that could eventually become a markdown upon a MOT reset, is always another compelling example. And being very specific about where you deploy your inventory to be effective, not only to suffice your customer or your consumer, but at the same time, your margins as a supplier, it's key. And you need to be very tactical. And I think that's where the use of data, especially if I go more into details of store item level data, along with external factors, as you said, demographics, which is one of the great things that is starting to happen, which Walmart has now opened a lot of the very valuable data they have about the consumer. They call it customer perception, shopper behavior. That could eventually allow the suppliers to make very good decisions, not only from an inventory and replenishment aspect or tactical operations aspect, but also from a category management. So I think it's definitely a trend that we should embrace. Obviously, it comes with a cost, but at the same time, if we think about the data that they've been receiving over the past 30 years, is still going to be there. It's just learning how to navigate the platform.
And I was really excited and impressed with the shopper demographics and the kind of consumer behavior. You know, Walmart Decision Support did have some similar to that. They're called market basket reports, and they showed things like what is also selling with your items, how many of your items are people buying at the same transaction, are they revisiting and buying this product again? Which was kind of some creepy data. How does Walmart know that I'm buying it again? But they're tracking payment methods. So the shopper insights that I've seen in the Luminate chart are a lot more detailed than the market basket report. So it's very valuable information. Again, it just comes down to making sense of it. So you know, a lot of times it comes down to how are you organizing the data, how are you analyzing it, are you making the right decisions, and sometimes that's a tough call to make.
I think it's spot on, and if I also add on top of your previous example, or why the data that Walmart have been providing since kind of the 1992 to the whole supplier community is important, is if we think from a buyer or Walmart buyer perspective or the merchant perspective, same with the replenishment, they need to oversee within a department many brands. So you as a brand owner, you need to make sure that you're taking care of your brand. So being able to use that data to ensure that you're taking care of your brand and ensuring that, in this case, the merchant or the replenishment manager from a Walmart counterpart is also taking care of your brand is a key piece of the job that a lot of suppliers miss. And I think that's one of the avenues where I have seen you being so effective, Tim, and I have heard some of the great stories of you supporting the suppliers to add tremendous value, either to their margins or even to their sales velocity, or even to, as you were mentioning, right, reducing the store count, which eventually you reduce your inventory, but you increase your sales, which everybody wins. Walmart wins and the supplier wins.
I think it's important for suppliers to kind of do a mental shift of thinking as all of this data analysis as an opportunity as opposed to an obligation. It tends to be, oh, Walmart wants me to do all of this work on their behalf, when really you have the capability to really drive your sales. So in our training classes that we work with suppliers, we really try to focus on thinking of this data as if you were Walmart. How is your account performing from their perspective? And if they're happy, everybody's. You'll get new items, you'll get store count changes, you'll get modular increases, linear square footage increases. So, but it all comes to making sure that the partnership is successful, not just that you're selling more to Walmart.
So I want to go deep dive, because as we are into this transition, because as we are changing, if we both today put our hat into a supplier, you mentioned it at the beginning, right? Changes come with a little bit of disruption, and adaptation needs to come around it. So we've been talking about the positives of, wow, having all this data, having access to this supply chain data, having access to the customer data, right? I think what I love about the Walmart Luminate team is that they have talked about the intersection of two major aspects, which is the product journey, which is mostly supply chain data, POS data, and then the consumer or customer journey, which is what happens even before the customer gets to the store. And then the store being the point of intersection, or the point of where the product journey and the customer journey kind of intersect. But now we sit down and we said, well, we are a supplier. We really don't have today the budget to pay for this charter version, and we're going to get access to channel performance or DSS without purchase orders. That's what I call it. What are the challenges that comes with this new system change? What are some of your perspectives? And I'm happy to add on top of that as well.
So far, in the process with our suppliers of integrating and reproducing the decision support reports that we've already had into Luminate. So you do have to, it's time consuming, you do have to recreate all these reports, but it's also an opportunity to kind of rethink how you're creating these reports. The basic version, thankfully, initially when Luminate was rumored that it was only going to be a paid program, that there wasn't going to be a free version, or if there was going to be, if there was going to be a free version, it was going to be very, very spare, where you're not getting a whole lot for it, and it's kind of something that you're really losing opportunity. I haven't seen that with Luminate Basic. I've seen plenty of insights still available, like you mentioned, your purchase order visibility, which you can still get from Retail Link. Retail Link is not going anywhere. It's just the decision support aspect of Retail Link. So don't panic. You'll still be doing all your cost change scenarios and import quotes and all of that stuff. The only things that you'll have to use Retail Link for that Luminate doesn't do is your Nova purchase order management and OTIF. I don't know if they have, I've had conversations with some people at Luminate about if they're planning on integrating that, and so far the answer is not at this time. So you do have to get it from two different places, but the data is still there, and I think it's still plenty valuable for suppliers. We're just calling it a different name.
Yep. No, thank you for bringing that up. So I think if I'm a supplier, a few things, right? I might have reports from different apps, like for example, Nova will extract purchase orders, but then my sales and inventory and forecast, I'll extract it out of the Luminate free version, which is kind of channel performance. One of the challenges that we're hearing, and I'm going to play the other side, is that obviously as you go into Luminate channel performance, you have multiple reports. So I can only pull forecast accuracy from one specific report. I can only pull markdowns from another one. I could only do sales and inventory. So bringing all of those together and harmonizing them is something, as exactly you mentioned, we have to change the way you've been pulling those reports and the way you've been pulling that data. And it's definitely something that is going to take a little bit of time so that you get it acclimated. But then if I go on the other side, pulling data is way more flexible. I think the tool has some very good explanations, is faster. So those are things that we definitely need to embrace. And last but not least is ensuring that you bring all of that data together to see what is happening on my business. So from your perspective, Tim, and I think this has nothing to do with the change of DSS to Luminate, but what are some of the key indicators that you mostly go work with some of your suppliers? If you will say the top three.
Where we start with, and if any supplier has been to a line review with Walmart, even not your initial sales, but your 6-month or 1-year line review, it's likely you've seen a supplier scorecard. It has been the kind of backbone of Walmart's insight into your business, but from Walmart's perspective. And it gets down to basically 3 broad key performance indicators. One is sales. Obviously, the sales volume, it is important. And in our classes, invariably, the first report anybody wants to run is a sales report. Makes sense. We want to know how much the consumer is buying of our product. That's important. It doesn't speak to profitability, and it doesn't speak to how efficiently Walmart made that sale. So the 3 KPIs that the scorecard kind of addresses that really help you get an initial view of your website, or of your how your company's website and how your products are integrating and flowing into Walmart's realm. You end up getting things like sales, and then profitability, which is Walmart's profitability, not dealing with yours, and asset efficiency, which is a number of metrics like inventory turns, weeks of supply, in-stock levels. Ultimately, if there is a score on the scorecard, it would be a metric called GMRR, GOII.
Jim Roy, you got it.
It's a mouthful. It's gross margin return inventory investment. Ultimately, it's a ratio of gross margin to inventory dollars. Walmart is trying to maximize the number of dollars they receive in margin per every unit of inventory. And that's where that fine line gets between in stock and overstock that you had mentioned. You know, it's easy to be in stock. You just ship everybody a pallet of product, everybody's in stock. But one store might not sell that for 2 more years. That makes it an inefficient sale. So the 3 KPIs that we start on a broad level with is sales, profitability, and asset efficiency. And those are all covered in a neat little format on the scorecard, which there is a scorecard in the new Luminate portal. Basic. There is a scorecard. It's slightly different, but it's very familiar if you've looked at a scorecard before. That is where I try to hammer home with Walmart, or with Walmart suppliers. Don't just look at this data from your perspective. You need to look at it from, is this successful from Walmart's end? You might have 2 suppliers that sell the same amount of competitive products, have the same profitability, but it took one supplier 2 weeks to sell their product to the consumer. It took another one 2 months. When it comes down to who stays and who goes, it's going to be the one that's more efficiently making that profit. So it is a lot more than just making a pretty sales graph. That is part of it, but it's one line on the scorecard. Sales is one line on this probably 60-line scorecard. I don't know if I addressed your question.
No, I think it's clear. I think you mentioned it very well. So it's sales, I'll say sales velocity, sales efficiency. The second one is profitability, and then the third one is asset efficiency. But how do you bring those 3 together into tactical decisions that you make every day? It's really where the challenge comes in. And every supplier is different. Every supplier is structured with a different supply chain network, with different lead times, different kind of minimum arrival dates, order frequency. So how do you make all of that sense to really have a profitable business working with Walmart and making Walmart win? But at the same time, if you make Walmart win, you're going to win as a supplier. So I think that's always the message that we try to portray as well with our suppliers.
Yeah. And from a supplier standpoint, you know, the hardest thing, and you had mentioned, you know, channel performance as opposed to, you know, how that compares to the shopper's insights and the shopper consumer behavior. You know, the store is where all of that happens, where all the interaction happens. But as a supplier, you know very well, especially direct import type of stuff, you know, your need to get that product on the shelves might have started 6 months earlier. So it all starts with alignment and getting visibility to what Walmart thinks their consumer is going to purchase, which aligns with how much they think they're going to order from you, which aligns with how when do you need to make material procurements to have the product ready to be produced and get on the ship. So there's a lot that goes into it, but it all starts with data. And so the, you know, Luminate Basic, adding things like the supply plan, which is Walmart's order forecast for suppliers, adding the sales forecast, providing obviously sales history and supply chain stuff. It still provides a very robust network. It's just going to be kind of a learning curve of learning a new system from an old one.
Spot on. Tim, what's ahead of us? What's the future outlook of this Walmart supplier collaboration? So obviously we're seeing new trends, but I want to get your perspectives, and as usual, I'm going to add on top of it.
Yeah, I think the adage in the last couple of years with Walmart, or maybe 2 to 3 years, is that constant change is here to stay. You know, we are in the last 3 to 4 years, we've had OTIF, we've had Nova, we've had Item 360, now we have Luminate. I don't think it's going to stop. I think if anything, adding bells and whistles and features to Luminate, both the basic and charter. Ultimately, though, they're just tools. They're giving you data, they're giving you management capabilities to either manage your account by new item setup and maintenance or PO management. I honestly loved Nova when they came out with it. The previous kind of email and spreadsheet method was very cumbersome. Replenishment managers didn't like it because it just took a lot of time. It was error prone. So allowing this kind of self-service portal with Nova, again, it was a new technology and a new skill you had to learn, but the benefits were there. And I think it's going to provide that as well.
Spot on. I do see a future where, and I agree 100% with you, where there's going to be apps, but I think embracing what is happening, which is Nova, which is Luminate, with the new modules, right? Having really the granularity of data, not only store item or DC item, now you're going to have a store item persona.
Yep.
And what you could do as a brand with that data to really increase your market share. So I think there's a lot of cool things happening. But I think the second point that I wanted to bring is those tools, Nova, Luminate, speaking with your own internal tools as a supplier, where the account manager, the CPFRs and replenishment managers of the suppliers are the quarterbacks to ensure that those tools are flowing data properly and insights properly so that we could operate efficiently. I think that's where I'm seeing the future, and we're starting to see that through Nova. It's a platform where suppliers could interact through purchase orders and adjustments of purchase orders or creation of purchase orders for certain exceptions. So eventually, that's where I'm seeing the future going, where exceptions, where messagings are being templatized so that Walmart and suppliers work closer together. And I think I'm very excited to what's ahead. So anything else that you want to add, Tim, before we open the panel for questions?
No, I mean, I could talk about that. I have talked and can talk about this new translation or this new transition to Luminate for a lot longer than 30 minutes. And I'm happy to, if anyone has questions or either after the fact, can email me or email Jorge or Matt or kind of anybody. This is the topic. We've got 24 days until Luminate, until DSS ends. It's a death in a family for people who have been doing this for a long time. It's scary, but the tools are still there. And I would say take this as an opportunity to rethink how you're looking at data, rethink how you're using the tools to possibly go beyond just Excel and start looking into software solutions and things like that to help you organize and display and visualize this data.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to open the forum to any questions.
Sure.
So whoever from the audience have any specific questions, and if we're going to try to answer them, but feel free to post any questions. I'm actually opening here, and it seems that Lucas, thank you for your interactions. There's an issue on aspect of expiration dates on online operations. I don't know if I understand the question, Tim. Maybe you understand it.
Online operations. I'm assuming we're talking about omnichannel or e-com sales. I know Luminate is planning on handling your e-com side of things as well, and giving you more insight into that. I don't know if that's the question that's being asked, especially about expiration date. If we're talking about when decision support is no longer handling omni-channel sales, it's March 1. It's the same date as brick and mortar stuff.
Yep, I echo that, and just to go a little bit deep into the Luminate, yes, there's going to be e-commerce sales with specific KPIs like Neil peaks.
Yep.
When an item is not at the store and omni-channel is coming and they cannot pick it. Yep. So there's definitely some other kind of KPIs that are available today in Luminate that they were not available through DSS.
Yep. Yeah, they're giving a lot more of insights into the omni-channel side, which to me is really exciting. We've had some kind of visibility to the full omni-channel e-com setup, but you haven't really been able to drill down, to the very granular. Why is something happening from the fulfillment center as opposed to shipping from the store or being picked up today? So I think this could, again, data is empowering. You get the insights and then you can do what you follow the breadcrumbs basically.
Spot on. I'm going to read another question from Harry. Will the Luminate platform extend to strategic sourcing? Well, this is very interesting. For example, do the buyers have access to should cost info when collaborating with suppliers? Ooh.
Should cost as in you're saying it costs this much as a supplier when it should cost this. I imagine they have their feelers. You know, there are only X number of factories in the world, so I would imagine it has access to that kind of what they feel it should cost. I'm pretty sure that's what the question's asking. Luminate isn't going to, as far as I know, provide any kind of insight into what it actually costs the factory to produce something, and in other words, trying to back into how much margin the is making. That would be a non-starter for a lot of suppliers, to be honest. I think that's how I'm interpreting that question, is talking about whether Walmart can get insights into trying to back into what suppliers are making when they make a quote to Walmart. Hopefully not.
I haven't seen appetite to pretty much go that deep into the should cost and pretty much the sourcing of supplier products.
Yeah.
Yet I do see this particular question as a potential opportunity where if in this case the supplier has access to the retailer data, in this case Walmart through Luminate, and be able to tie that back with your own manufacturing operations.
Yep.
And be able to really kind of make it more efficiently through obviously multiple levers that you could pull. That could be ideal, but I don't see appetite from Walmart getting access into kind of supplier systems and ecosystems.
There are a
given
lot
the
of
amount
variables.
of suppliers, right?
There are a ton of variables that go into what something costs. You know, where you're sourcing your actual materials for, where your factory is. You know, lead times, seasonal fluctuations. There are a ton of factors. So I don't think Walmart could ever nail you down and say, hey, look, we think your quote should be this. Because we think it costs this much for your material goods and things like that. I think any conversation that started like that would be really a shot in the dark, maybe a negotiating tactic. I'm not sure.
But it could happen, right? It could happen in a negotiation. They could get external prices from a few other first-party data that get sourcing of particular products. But again, you just need to be prepared to substantiate your answers and be able to negotiate in this case and collaborate as well. Yep.
I mean, it's no secret that when you interview, Walmart's going to want to. That's just part of the game. There are some breaking points, honestly, where suppliers can say, hey, we cannot get this any cheaper to you than we're already getting it to you. But that's how they justify their low prices to the consumer. You know, yes, it is very possible for them to get either several quotes or have their own factory audits and stuff that say, hey, this is what it costs this factory produce this product. Why is it costing us X percentage more?
Spot on. I would like to open the forum. Any other questions, concerns, challenges while you guys are embracing the change from DSS to Luminate?
Yeah, I don't see any more coming through.
Jorge, there's what? Did you see the question from Anthony?
No,
I do not.
Yeah, click on Q&A.
Oh, did it just come in?
I can read it. You see it?
Oh, I got it.
With the additional data,
hey Anthony,
you want me to read it?
Yeah, I'm happy to read it. So with the additional data available in Luminate, are you seeing any AI software that works well with identifying and prioritizing opportunities for suppliers?
You know what, Jorge, I'm going to turn this over to you. You guys are the software folks. I am the person who takes the data and makes sense of it. However, that data is brought in and analyzed. You know, there are a lot of different options for that, and it's very exciting to see this kind of stuff happen with a new system as opposed to an old decision support system. So I'm going to let Jorge address that part.
Absolutely. And hey, Anthony. So absolutely, I think I see it in two ways, right? And I'm going to go back to my previous premise. You got the journey of the product, which is where suppliers are. How do we get the product from source to make all the way to deliver to Walmart at the store. And then you got the journey of the consumer. Again, I know Walmart calls it customer, but it's okay. What are the drivers that lead a consumer to go into a store and buy your product, your Pepsi, your Coca-Cola? So those are two big aspects where there's a lot of data points from those two journeys and the intersection where, yes, there's a lot of software that the more granular data you get, the better decisions you could make. We are big proponents of granularity. One of the reasons why DSS and now Luminate is so important for suppliers is because of the granularity of data. You got location SKU or store item numbers where you could really drive that and aggregate that to make better manufacturing decisions from a supplier standpoint, or better distribution, better planning, transportation planning decisions. So yes, there is software, there is AI. It's just a matter of how do you use all of those data points together along with your supplier operations. I think here what it's key is that it needs to be configurable based on your supplier operations. What does that mean? Well, going back to what are my lead times? Do I have 3PLs or do I have a specific warehouse? What are my order frequencies? How do you blend that data to really make a decision that again benefits Walmart and benefits at the same time you as a supplier? I think there's definitely tremendous opportunities in there. So the granularity of data that is now being accessed through this portals, and now with what is happening in the world with the proliferation of, I'll say, cheap data processing and the cost of data processing plus AI and natural language processing algorithms, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities in there. But I think the process in here is to work with experts like Tim, because I think none of this data, none of these insights makes any sense if they're not relevant within your context and your operation. So I think that's really where the challenge is, that the softwares and the AIs and the data and the analytics needs to be moldable for your operation. So that's where I wanted to kind of close out. I don't know if, Tim, you want to add anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of took the words out of my mouth with not the expert part. I wasn't going to refer to myself as an expert, but getting data is data. And if any programmers out there, anybody who's interfaced with a lot of data, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you have good data, good granular data, you can do whatever you want with it. But the specific part about this, if you're looking for any kind of software solution, a lot of software solutions are very broad. They handle retail data, or they handle supplier, supply chain data or planning data, but they aren't specific to a retailer. So I think what's going to be the most powerful is a solution that would say, here's the data that we're getting from Luminate, from this channel, and here's what Walmart wants to see. And that's going to allow you to say, we know that this data could be a sales data from Amazon, could be sales data from any other mass retailer, but this is software specific to Walmart and what Walmart needs, how Walmart needs to look at this data, which can really help drive from an AI side, really concentrate on like exception reporting and saying, this is what all the data says. Here's the quick flag that says, based on this algorithm and based on the experience of the people who developed the software, this is something needs to be called to the replenishment manager's attention, or here's an opportunity that the buyer needs to be aware of. So I think this year is going to be really exciting in a lot of ways to see how all of these kind of emerging technologies can help simplify and also amplify the insights that suppliers depend on.
Absolutely. So Luminate, and I think, and I know we're running out of time, but I think there's some very good questions, and we do want to take the time to answer those. So if I could put that into context, into a quick example, is Luminate being kind of now the source of data, which is fantastic. It's a source of data. We rely on that source of data so that we could speak with the merchants and create an exception. So let's just talk about an exception. Well, I'm about using AI and prediction algorithms that are extremely predictive. I could quickly see and predict an out of stock. So it's a potential stock out risk. Whoa. So now using that data, if I could really explain it in a very simple way to the replenishment manager or the merchant, eventually now we could influence a potential order so that we avoid that stock out that eventually translate into a lost sales. Again, there's many examples. It could be the other way around, but there's many examples of things that it could happen. Now with retail media networks, you could actually use advertising to accelerate a sales lift to reduce the markdown, for example. Or if I have an extra capacity on my distribution center, I could actually push inventory to a particular location and then do in-store advertising. So there's many avenues now that the suppliers have today with data that they didn't have before. So I will definitely probably leave this open to a potential CPFR 2.0, which is the use of retail media networks with supply chain and Luminate data, which is definitely a new trend that we're seeing in today's world. I do see a question from Danny. Hey, Danny, have you seen discrepancies between Luminate and DSS data when pulling reports?
Yes.
Yes, that's definitely a doubt.
Yes, I haven't seen anything extreme. I haven't seen anything extreme yet. I don't know if it's tied to, I mean, I know the calendar's the same. I don't know if, I don't know the why, and I can't get a reason why out of my kind of Luminate contacts. They haven't been huge, but I have seen discrepancies in in-stock data, forecasts, sales data. Usually what I have seen is that I can get a closer comparison from DSS to Luminate if I'm looking at granular data, as opposed to looking at an item summation. I've seen closer data. Yes, I have seen some. So if this is a situation where it's just new and they're working out the kinks, there may just be some blind spots in how the data is being collected and reported. But yes, short answer, I have.
Same here. And I think a few things that we're learning, Danny, is there's a difference between Luminate and DSS, which was the database where the data was being pulled. So see Luminate being as the ledger, the accounting ledger, and DSS will have a lot of historical data and a lot of, I wouldn't call it trash, but it will be data that was unused. So yes, there's definitely differences, but they're not, I haven't seen any material differences. Because
I think the important part might be that you know, there might be differences, but if I was going to guess, you know, it's a black box. We only see what comes out of the data, out of the database. So we have really no way to validate, is this true or is this 100% accurate? I think if there were differences between Luminate and DSS, I would lean towards Luminate being more accurate. I think they've made a lot of changes in their data collection. Like Jorge mentioned, they've gotten rid of a lot of the trash, a lot of the junk. Databases can get cluttered pretty quickly, especially one that was started in 1992.
And I think it comes in line as well with the segmentation that you're going to see on the reporting, where you could only pull sales and inventory individually versus kind of pulling another report, which is forecast accuracy. So they have done a tremendous work to, again, when you were pulling data out of DSS before, you could actually pull multiple levers, and then you'll see some data sometimes that will make nonsense because of the level of granularity. And I think they're putting the right control points in Luminate today in the free version and also in the charter version to avoid those type of mistakes or data mistakes that we were seeing before. So I definitely lean into team. Definitely Luminate is the source of truth now. And the differences that we're seeing, they're not material, but there will be some small differences.
Yep, I agree.
And as a matter of fact, Danny and Lucas, we're more than happy to refer. So Tim and I will be doing some training sessions, and we're probably going to be having some other episodes. So yes, more than happy to support with any training. I think Tim has been doing already some good Luminate trainings through Trend Results, and we're going to be collaborating a lot through that.
Yeah, so Luminate themselves does have some good training sessions. They really do. And I've taken them. The difference between and ours, obviously this is a for-profit company. The training sessions that we offer, the biggest difference that I've seen in what we try to hype in all of our and try to point to in all of our webinars and our workshops is that we've always been on the supplier side of the table. We know the data from the supplier side. So we also have the experience. And so we're looking at the data or the Luminate training, not as here's how you use data, here's how you get the data, which are largely the kind of the monkey tricks of how to get data from Luminate. Ours is more about what do you do with this data? Here's how to get it. That's the kind of the easier part. What does it all mean? Where do you go from here? So ours are a lot more like case studies and stuff, but definitely if you're just looking for a crash course on Luminate and how to get data from Luminate, they do have, as Daniel mentioned, they do have some good free training sessions.
Either way, any questions, we'll be more than happy to support you with any questions. I think there's one last question, which is, when does this change apply to Mexico or Walmart International? That's pretty interesting. I don't know if you know, Tim.
I have not heard any formal guidance. Usually what happens is things roll out to, and I'm just going back to how OTIF was handled, and then Nova and Item 360. They typically will roll out these initiatives to the international side within a year, sometimes longer. I'm saying that it's a total guess right now. I do know that when it is rolled out, that Luminate for international will be the same type of process. It won't be like OTIF US and OTIF international are completely different metrics, completely different scorecards and everything like that. But
I'd like to piggyback.
I don't have a date yet.
We don't have any formal guidance yet, but I'll say it's probably going to happen somewhere in a range of 1 to 2 years. And reason being is, if you think about the recent changes of MFA that happened a year or 2 years ago here in the US with Walmart Retail Link and DSS, those just rolled out into, I know, Mexico and a few other Walmart international operations. So usually you should expect a little bit of lag to ensure that kind of the right changes, the right data is being placed. But it's definitely, I'll say it's a matter of when, and you should be expecting some changes as we go. And because again, there's value, and as soon as there's value and people are validating that there's value, there's definitely going to be a change happening.
Yeah, I did see a follow for that question: how to apply the American perspective to LATAM. Data is data, and I'm saying that in a very broad sense. Sales data is sales data. Supply chain and forecasting and replenishment and fill rate, OTIF data is the same globally. The perspective for any country, I think, is really going to come down to that individual country and what the kind of demographics and behaviors are of that company or of that country. Walmart had their kind of tragic entry and removal from Germany years ago because they didn't really know their audience. They went in there with these big box stores and were competing against the local baker and the local butcher, and it just didn't work with them. So I would say, if anything, applying an American perspective to LATAM or to any other country is kind of dangerous. Because they're apples and oranges. They're completely different cultures. They're completely different shopper behaviors. I would say the data's the data, and so analyzing it's the same. But as far as how you apply that to your unique local perspective, it is very, very specific.
100% agreed. There's a last question before we close. Hi, this is Arturo from Mexico. Hey, Arturo. Where can I start training myself in Luminate? Hope is well written. Thanks. I think his point here, Tim, is, and I think Arturo, Tim just mentioned it, right? Walmart today offers some open classes free for everyone. We're more than happy also to refer you to Trend Results, where Tim here is offering classes through Luminate. And I'll say those are the two avenues. I don't know, Tim, if you want to refer any other avenues, but I'll stick with those two.
Yeah, so my first clarification would be, if you're in Mexico City, it needs to be clear that suppliers, or the Luminate only applies to suppliers doing business with Walmart USA. Even if you're physically located outside of the US, if you're doing business with Walmart US, then Luminate will apply, and the deadlines will apply, and all of the reporting capabilities will apply. As far as training, if you are doing business with Walmart US, absolutely, you can join the training on our website. I don't know if you can drop that in, or maybe in the intro that, I think it's in the intro that Matt had provided on the invitation. So you'll have links to our website where you can go look into our our training webinars. We do them right now about every couple of weeks on Luminate. We are working on one right now. The colleague of mine who does the training classes for Luminate specifically is Panamanian. So she is working on a Spanish version of this. So hopefully we can roll this out to the Puerto Rico folks and all of that stuff. So I don't have an ETA on that. I know she's actually in Panama right now trying to have a vacation. But yeah, we are looking forward to having an actual a Spanish version of this as well, especially prior to this rolling out internationally.
Thank you, Tim. Well, I want to thank everyone. By the way, thank you very much for your questions. If you have more questions, I'm sure Tim and I will be more than happy to sit down with you and help you through this transition. I think embrace it. There's value. There's more coming. Anything else do you want to close up with, Tim? I think we're more.
No, exciting times. I know Bops is all over it with your insights. We're all over it. It's the biggest question being talked about right now, or the biggest topic. So yeah, stay in touch with both of us. I believe Matt had put everybody's contact information in the email invite or in the webinar invite. So feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, I'd love to offer a thought quickly, if I may, Jorge. I think Tim said something a moment ago that would be really easy to walk past quickly. But I've been in the business a long time, and I had a supplier tell me years ago, if Walmart had any idea what Retail Link was capable of, they would hold their supplier teams to a completely different standard. Yeah. And I think that is so true. What Tim said about getting, free training from Walmart, I think that's wonderful with respect to the basics. But I think the value in working with a person and a company like Tim's is they don't teach it from Walmart's perspective. They teach it from a supplier's perspective. And they haven't figured out how to cheat it, but they've figured out how to make it dance. And so I think that's really, really important to consider as you look for resources. So Tim, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Matt, and thank everyone for your participation. Much appreciated.